Muslim Brotherhood today is not the same kind of young, dynamic organization that it was in previous decades. It in fact had a fair amount of investment in the kind of existing relationships that existed. One of the things that's very interesting about the protests that swept Mubarak from power was that those were done largely without the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood was playing catch-up through much of those protests, trying to get itself in a central position and so forth. And while they did play a role, and sometimes it was an important role, they were not at the leading edge of those protests. And it remains to be seen whether or not they will be at the leading edge of whatever changes take place in Egyptian politics in the weeks and months to come. I think the idea that Egypt's population will adopt a radicalized and politicized understanding of Islam is not very likely. I don't think that has much to do with the Muslim Brotherhood per se. I think it simply has to do with the history of Islamic institutions, Islamic leaders, and understandings of Islam that are common among Egyptian people. And so that I don't think is much of a threat unless unless substantial new events occur in Egypt that sort of change the course of Egyptian politics. And the Muslim Brotherhood itself is not one that has a particularly radical understanding of Islam. I think that the Muslim Brotherhood will play a role as a kind of transitional organization between what has happened in the past and whatever is to come for Egypt in the future. They have the great advantage to military leaders in Egypt, and it is military leaders who control the country at this point, of being a known quantity and being fairly conservative. You know, it is an elderly leadership that controls the Muslim Brotherhood today. It's a kind of ossified organization. It's existed for a long time. At this point, it hasn't been a sort of dynamic new organization for some time now. And because of that, it is a reliable partner that has a lot of legitimacy among the Egyptian people. And so for that reason, it's very valuable to these military leaders. It is, both can be counted on to not make radical demands, not upset the apple cart too much, but at the same time it has this imprimatur of legitimacy that is bestowed upon it by its popularity from the Egyptian people. Now, what the Muslim Brotherhood does with that, I don't know, and I think it'll depend in large part in what kind of government shapes, what kind of government ends up resulting from the sort of current negotiations and politics that are going on in Egypt today.